to our parents and also faculty members this afternoon. We are privileged this afternoon to have Mr. Mark Ellison, who is our design technology teacher at ACG School Jakarta, run the Parents as Learners workshop this afternoon. The title of the workshop is Entrepreneurial Skills, and Mark is going to focus the presentation on project-based learning and creativity. So we're really looking forward to this presentation, Mark. For those of you who have joined the call, we will be recording the workshop, and we will also be providing a link of the recording as well as a link to the presentation that Mark is using this afternoon, and we'll send that out to all families. So thanks again for joining this afternoon. Mark, over to you, and really looking forward to the presentation.
Okay, well, I'm going to start off by saying the disclaimer here. I've been working with two different programs, and some of the video may be a bit laggy on your, it may not be, but if it is, you will have access to those afterwards, so don't worry too much, okay? All right, so I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. Now, hopefully you can see all of my, and let's begin. Okay. All right, so first and foremost, welcome. I did have the pleasure of meeting some of you the last time we had a Parents as Learners workshop, under different circumstances, of course. But I'll try and do my best to try and keep you as entertained as much as I can. So first and foremost, my name is Mark Ellison, and I will be your workshop leader for today's Parents as Learners workshop. I'm hoping for it to be as engaging as possible, not as interactive as the last workshop, but hopefully there will be some takeaways from today's class. So in this session, I'll be sharing with you aspects of what we do within a typical class lesson. But please bear in mind that this has been adapted in parts for the purpose of this workshop. All right, so I'm going to begin by asking a question. All right. And the question, well, it's more of a statement, okay? How many times have you seen this? Or have you heard somebody say, I am creative? Not many, right? I would say rarely, really, because people don't seem to want to scream and shout about that. How about this? So, yeah, see some head nods there. Okay. So this is something I hear a lot, especially from adults. So why is this? Well, creativity. While there are many other reasons why so few of us own up to being creative, here are some answers to why we probably think the way that we do. So the word creativity in our society has mistakenly been limited to artistic endeavors, but it also encompasses essential parts of everyday life. So divergent thinking, problem solving, and innovation. Now, creativity allows you to become a better problem solver in all areas of your life and work. Creativity helps you see things differently and better deal with uncertainties. All right, so studies have shown that creative people are better able to live with uncertainty because they can adapt their thinking to allow for different scenarios. Well, what is creativity? So, well, if you look at this simplified diagram, and this is one that I often share with my pupils to try and simplify what modes of thinking is about. But quite simply put, it's utilizing two modes of thought processes, using both imagination while applying logic is what's known as lateral thinking. All right, a more familiar term would be thinking outside of the box. I'm sure that's something that a lot of you are a lot more familiar with. So, now there are various ways of displaying creativity, whether it be a professional navigating office politics, or a child planning how they will reach the cookies from the kitchen table. One thing for sure is that creativity is an essential part of our everyday lives, all right? So let's look into what we already know with some facts, okay? Believe it or not, more time is spent on preparing students for exams focused on specific core subjects, including math, okay, English, and science. Yet, the truth is, less time is actually spent supporting creativity and child-driven learning, right, as documented on this website. In the US, music and the arts are widely understood as building blocks for enhancing creativity amongst other skills. However, they are considered peripheral activities more appropriate for a few talented students rather than the masses. So that's what we know. Now, in contrast to that, countries like Hungary, Japan, and the Netherlands consistently rank amongst the highest in math and science test scores. Well, why is that? The reason? According to the research, these countries have long adopted mandates for arts and music education programs, all right, integrated into so-called core subjects. So again, studies have shown there has been a direct correlation in performance where creativity has been established. Now, this is important as many more employers are recruiting creative types students as they progress and enter into their professional career paths. It's a particular favorite slide of mine. So being able to apply different modes of thinking is particularly useful in an ever-changing environment where situations and needs change as the world does. And like I said, what I really do like about this slide is that it's a great reminder of what to do if you're ever faced with a problem. And as a 21st century learner, we consider varied ideas and creative solutions to new and old problems. So let's look at what we can do to help that. There are a number of tips that we can use to deliver and develop creative abilities further. So let's take a look at some of these. So let's go back to being creative. Let's try not to put things off. Let's set goals, enlist the help of others, and make time to develop these skills. Take more risks. When it comes to building your creative skills, you need to be willing to take risks in order to advise your abilities, okay? Ask the questions that force you to think differently. So insecurity in your own abilities can suppress creativity, which is why it's important to build that confidence. As long as you're asking the right questions, which I'm going to show you a quote from somebody who you're probably aware of, and I'll give you a little clue here, okay? I'm going to just share this quote with you. So I'll just give you a minute to digest that. So, stories of the beginnings of Starbucks and Instagram utilize these processes, and it is fair to say that neither of these companies would be what they are today if they continue to try and solve their original questions. And that question being, how can I recreate the Italian espresso bar in the United States? Okay. Now, looking at that differently, Howard Schultz eventually looked at what wasn't working, and with the idea to instead ask, how can I create a comfortable, relaxing environment to enjoy great coffee? Okay, and while Kevin Systrom originally pondered on how he could create great location sharing apps, a better question turned out to be, how can we create a simple photo sharing app? Which of course we all know went on to become Instagram. So it really goes to show that by exploring other possible options and reshaping questions, we all have the potential to be creative. However, this will and does require practice. So I'm just going to share with you a technique that I actually use in the classroom with students. Scamper, I'll just go back there actually. So Scamper is a technique that you can use to help spark creativity. Created by Bob Earl in the 70s, it's easy to see why it is used by corporates today. Scamper is based on the notion that everything new is a modification of something that already exists. Each letter in the acronym represents a different way that you can play with the characters of what is challenging you to trigger those new ideas. So these questions actually force you to think differently about your problem and eventually come up with innovative solutions. So first, you need to state the problem that you would like to solve or develop. Okay? So if we can look at these questions here, what can I substitute in the process? How can I combine with other activities? Okay? I'm going to show you a quick example of how Scamper is used in the classroom. So here are a few of my students, ex-students, using the Scamper tool within a classroom setting. So as you can see, students here are using the Scamper tool to help them develop their ideas further for a particular and specific role, reason, and development. Now, a classic example based upon McDonald's, founder Ray Kroc, you can see here, right, that it is easy to identify many of the ideas that he used through the Scamper lens. E for elimination, where you're taking away waiters. All right, so now customers are serving themselves. Rearranging, customers pay before they eat. And bear in mind, this is a restaurant, right? Puts with the uses, selling restaurants instead of selling hamburgers, okay? So with that in mind, we know now that by asking questions and asking the right questions, we all can become a lot more creative, okay? So maybe the next time you are faced with a situation or problem, I'm challenging you to try and give this technique a try. For those of you that know me and would like access to these resources, please feel free to get in touch with me and I can send them out to you. So, entrepreneurial skill set number 2. We talked about creativity, we talked about how we can use Scamper techniques to further our thinking. Now we're going to look at project-based learning, okay? How does this help with creativity? Well, first of all, let's look at what it actually is. Project-based learning. PBL, as it's known, allows students to be able to investigate issues and topics for real-world situations. It fosters abstract and intellectual tasks that explore complex issues. So great examples for many subject areas, actually, would include field trips, experiments, model building, okay, like how you can see here, group-based activities, posters, and reports. Now here, I'm just showing you a sample of some of the units that we are currently doing at ACG, actually. All of these examples are a viable display of student activities in which portfolios can provide solid evidence for presentations of learning. So, students can utilize Smart School, right? Again, it's a set of objectives which allows students to be able to organize themselves. It allows them to become self-directed, self-accessed, and self-paced. So what it does say, it puts the student in the driving position to be able to look at what they can achieve, how they can achieve it, and who they can collaborate with, if that is the case. More often than not, it allows students the opportunity to work with real-life issues and practices where they are able to understand the relevance of integrated units. They are able to acquire self-management skills, such as time management, resource management, and stress management, usually by way of delegating tasks. I'm a big advocate for project-based learning because I see this firsthand with the students that I've worked with. It gives purpose to a project and it allows for students to be able to engage in tasks by posing a problem or a situation for a real world topic. Okay, now in this unit that you can see, The overarching question was whether the form of a racing car has a direct impact against the function in terms of speed. Students worked in teams to be able to create design and carefully working out the best shape and the form for the particular vehicle. And this was an interdisciplinary unit with science where they also learned about Newton's law and how that would affect their design. This would allow them to investigate further in adapting and enhancing their design in terms of speed. And as you can see, it was a very engaging activity that all students were able to share within this particular experience. Now, it is important to involve students in the questioning and planning of project-based tasks. And this allows them to be able to feel and be able to take ownership of the project that they have invested in. An idea is to try and integrate as many subjects via cross-curricular opportunities as possible, as that way there's a bigger chance for inclusion as well as relevance to what they're actually doing. So why PBL? Why does it help? Well, students can work individually, in groups, constructing knowledge and building understanding. Students can think outside of the box, and students can work in groups or work with others through collaborative thinking. We know that it focuses on imparting specific knowledge and skills while inspiring students to question actively, think critically, and draw connections between their studies and the real world. Students can actually work individually or in groups. So, how do you get students to engage in these tasks? So obviously that's going to fall back on the teacher, the mentor, whoever's taking them. And that was a challenge. But I'm just going to share with you one of the ways that I actually allowed students or engaged students to buy into the projects that we're working on by way of pitching to the students. This is what's called the Buyin. So I'm just going to share again. I'm going to just pause this screen because I'm going to have to go to a separate screen for the video. So just bear with me on this one, please. The Buyin. So this allows students to be able to feel and take ownership of the particular project that they're working on and the possibility of integrated units. It ensures, you need to ensure that obviously the correct materials and resources are available to them, and working with project-based learning, there's a big opportunity and a chance that all students are involved in some way, shape or form. It's really interesting being able to see that, because students who have particular roles or they feel they're better in areas, they tend to find their way through project-based learning, utilizing their own strengths. So this was the pitch that I used. In 2017, I was asked as a DT teacher for a department if I would help them put together an award ceremony, right? An opportunity that I thought the grade 10 students would relish. So I'm just going to share with you the pitch that I used for that particular task at the time. So I'm just going to exit here and just switch over, and I'm going to just, here we go. Oh. Sorry, the sound's down on this one. Let's put it up a little bit. There we go. No, sound's still down. Sorry about that. Is there a way to fix this sound on this thing? If not, if we can't see it, I'll make sure that you have access to it as we move forward. Okay. So let's just go back. So the pitch that I shared with them was actually an event that I was involved with at an older school, okay? So you will have access to that, I'm sure, at some point. Consequently, this was the outcome of that event. After the pitch, we had students that were graphic designers, became photographers, magazine editors, creating merchandise. We had animators. It was a really, really exciting experience, and one that and no doubt students will never forget. So, objectives, backwards planning, okay? Begin with the end in mind and craft the driving questions. So then again, we're going back to questions, right? What questions are going to help drive what you want students to know, what you want them to learn, and what you want them to inquire about, okay? The driving question is what the students will always keep referring back to throughout this particular process. The question should create a need for them to know the material, all right? And you need to be able to backward plan from your final outcome and realize the components that will be needed for assessment during that particular unit. Okay, so the assessment should address the key standards, building understanding of the key knowledge, should be immersive for student learning, and it should be ultimately student driven. Okay, mapping this process will allow for the planning of resources needed to carry out the tasks. And by managing the processes, you are actually empowering the students to take ownership of their learning whilst facilitating and providing the scaffold that will allow them to meet those objectives. So to conclude, let us have a look at some of the outcomes of project-based learning. So as you can see on the screen, it assesses performance on content and skills using criteria similar to those in the world of work, encouraging accountability, goal setting, and improved performances, where students actually can have conversations, meaningful conversations, and measure themselves against their fellow students and peers. Goal setting, it creates positive and communication and collaborative relationships among diverse groups of students. It meets the needs of its learners with varying skills and learning styles. And that's the beauty, is that everybody has a different skill set. Everybody has something that they're better at, but the beauty is they come together, and because they work and they share, they often find that when they delegate tasks, they're either matched to something that allows them to be able to work together successfully. And lastly, it does actually engage and motivates bored or indifferent students. And again, I do have some more examples of those, but for another session, okay? So at this stage, as I've been waffling on, normally in this workshop, we would have an exit pass, but I'm afraid today, because we don't have it's not as interactive as I would have liked it to have been, I will let you no doubt off the hook. However, I would like you to stick around and watch our last video of the day. This is based on our current unit in design technology, which focuses on the investigation of different cultures in which students are to create a beastie creature influenced by that culture or country. All right, we've seen our students investigate, analyze, and create a design brief in which that information will help them build a picture of their product for creation. And again, that's an IDU unit where design technology is working with music and the arts to come up with a saleable product. So I hope you can stick around for that. And I'm just going to let's see if we can get this working again. I think we've done it.
And while you're doing that, Mark, I wonder if at the end of the video we have time for Q&A.
Of course, yeah.
Great.
Sounds good. Let me, here we go. Let's see. So as you can see there, we started with a backstory. We've used a very famous, we've used a very famous creature. If you're as old as me, you'll know this alien. But the purpose of this was to take a product, give it a backstory, learn about the processes of design, creating it using this program and software that we have, right the way through to production stages and manufacturing. So students actually get to learn the design process right the way from the design cycle, from research, analysis, design brief, to development of sketch drawings, right the way through to three-dimensional images, and then lastly, the production stage where we manufacture the actual product. So what we're looking at here at the moment is the design side, where students are investigating their cultures of their chosen countries and using that information to come up with their own creature design to represent that particular country. And then they take it through to the art stage, where they will work with Miss Olivia, and they'll create a backstory for their creature. They might design a book that goes along and supports their designs. And obviously, as you can see here, the designs, they, will leave it to their imagination and creativity to come out with wall arts. And then the final stages is working with the music department, where they'll actually create sound effects, be able to create a soundtrack, again, using the equipment and using the software to help them in the design of that. As you can see here, we're using specialist music software to help them compose and create their product. So again, students will use soundtracks, but they will have to research this and find out about the music of that particular culture, and then they will integrate that into their final product. And then what we're proposing at the end is to have a virtual exhibition where they can share their work. All right. So I hope that was useful to you, and I hope there was some takeaways there. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask, or is there anything anybody would like to share at this point?
I have a question, Mark.
Hi.
Hiya.
Miss Joanne.
First of all, I wish you'd been my teacher at school. And second, yeah, goodness. Amazing.
I'm flattered, I'll take that.
Just amazing. But my question is, going back to your PBL.
Yes.
How do you go about assessing group work?
That's a really, really good answer. It's an answer that I get asked a lot. So the way it works with PBL, basically, the criteria is slightly different to the criteria that students have in school, but the way they're assessed, because you can imagine we have this question, it comes up all the time. You have students who do more than others. But what we do is we grade it based on their activity, their involvement within the task, all right? So that way it keeps it separate, so you can identify how and what they do, and they get a sense of, okay, I can achieve, the purpose behind PBL is it gives everybody an opportunity to succeed at whatever level. So the framework for that is slightly different, but it never, it's still markable, and students still assessed and get a grade depending on their output.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, Joanne.
Mark,
any other questions? Hi.
Hi, not really a question, but just a comment, really.
Yeah.
I attended a conference where Jack Ma was speaking, of Alibaba, and what he said is that, you know, the future of the world really depends on creativity. You know, the arts, people that can sing, create
Right.
music, you know, dance, all of these things. He says that is the future of what people really need to be focusing on. So I think, you know, it's a great topic you've got here, and a very important subject, I think. And I think
Thank
he's
you,
right.
Nick.
You know, those things can't be done by machines. It requires
Right.
creativity.
You know, that's a very, very good point, Nick, and I really appreciate the fact that you're aware of that yourself. Like I said there before in the presentation, it's facts, right? Employers now are actually looking for people who can think on the feet, who can be creative, and it's no longer looking at, okay, this person academically is outstanding, but you know, if I need them to be able to go and do something, I mean, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but if I need them to go and do something, can they do it? Can they put their faith and trust in that person to be able to think outside the box, right? So creativity does play, and some people, and that's why I started the presentation off at the beginning with how many times you hear people say, you know, I am not creative, right? I hear a lot of people saying that. I do have some students saying it, and then when you explain things to them and you show them and they actually see, right, okay, yeah, I can do that, I can achieve that. It's just being able to show people a way that they can be creative, where it's not necessarily aimed towards an artistic endeavor. So, yeah. Excellent point, that, Nick. Thank you. Any more questions? The floor is open. Yes, Miss Pfizer.
Okay, just so you know, I'm here as a parent.
Of course.
Watching me to ensure that I am attending your class. Okay, as you guys know, I'm a big believer in creativity and innovation, and I believe it's the only way to go forward. So I liked what you showed, project-based learning, backward design, questioning techniques, enforcing all these concepts, because there's so much literature going on about, you know, do schools actually kill creativity?
Yes, yes.
And I'm sure many of us are accustomed to TED Talks with Sir Ken Robinson. And I'm so happy to see what you integrate into your actual lessons. Because with this virtual learning, it still gives your students the opportunity to express themselves. So I know Tinkercad because you introduced that into my classroom. So I just like to say thank you. I had one student who has developed an entire airport.
You know, and that's what it's about, right? I mean, if we can expose the students to what's out there in terms of ways of creativity, then we're only limited by our own imagination, right? So yeah, no, I applaud you for that, Pfizer.
Okay, but
definitely.
As a parent, thank you so much for keeping the creativity going in my year 9 students.
Thank you very much. You know, it's been a task, I won't lie, during this pandemic, because for somebody like me who's always been really hands-on and has that relationship with students, and when you think about we've been doing this now for nearly almost a year, and you know, I have had to look at myself and what I'm delivering and to obviously keep the students engaged. And to be honest, that was one of the main reasons why this IDU unit came around, because we knew it was a good idea, but we know that students have are good in music, students are great at arts, in design technology, you know, constructing and building. And if we could meld something together where there's a great outcome for that, then everybody's a winner, right? Everybody's happy. Because believe it or not, I mean, students keep me going. When I see that they're successful, that keeps me going. It really does. So yeah, no. So thank you for all of your support, everyone here today. And again, I'm really looking forward to the next PAL workshop, but hopefully we will be together where we will be able to have some more interactivity and some games and some fun learning. That's my hope.
Before you leave, Mark, can I just perhaps ask you to just share with us I guess just a little bit of a teaser around the IDU, and for parents, educators are very well known for using interesting kind of acronyms around what they're doing. So the interdisciplinary unit that some of our students are working through at school involves art, design, technology, and music, and bringing those disciplines together to work through a project-based learning experience. What I'm really wanting you to share with us, not to reveal, you know, all of the nitty-gritties, but through the interdisciplinary unit that the students are working through at the moment, what entrepreneurial skills are they developing? And just give us a bit of an update on how that project is developing, because the video that you showed, it always spooks me out. And I know that the kids are not all designing aliens, but I'm just interested to hear kind of, and perhaps to share with the parents what the kids are coming up with.
Right. Well, so over the last week, we've just completed Criterion A strands, where it's about inquiry. We start with the design cycle. It's the inquiry stage where they're looking into their different cultures. They're looking and finding out about what's important in that particular country, maybe that culture, what they would want to include in a design. And so that culminated in a design brief, which, to be fair, was amazing. There was some really standout design briefs, which will all be shown, of course. And the work that's coming from it, it's, you know, and especially at this time when, you know, being online, because for me, as a design technologist, believe it or not, screen time is really important, right? Because sitting too long in front of any screen is not good for anyone, to the point where I'm having to tell students it's time to come off the screen, right? But again, if we're infusing them to be able to come up and design these ideas, and again, it's driving itself at the moment because they want to do it. They literally want to. I keep getting messages sent on my Teams when they really should be submitting it to ManageBack. They're sending me designs, pieces of work on Teams. Say, what do you think of this? So for me, that buzz is really good. So in terms of this particular unit, students are seeing the realization of what's happening. They've now come out of their inquiry stage where they found the information that they want to be able to find. They've researched, they've used questions. They're actually using Scamper at this moment in time for their design tasks. And so it's a really exciting time for us. The carrot that's being dangled in front of them at the moment, and I know, Sean, you might not really appreciate me saying this, with letting things out of the bag right now, but the carrot that's being dangled at the moment is a virtual experience, pretty much like the art exhibition. So if you had a chance to see that, then great. If you didn't, I would really encourage you to go and take a look at the art exhibition, because what this one promises to be is, if you can imagine, students will have been working for just over 3 to 4 months on a project, right? Where they're creating a creature based on the information they found. And that creature, as you saw in the video that I shared with you with the alien at the end of it, will be in a virtual space with all of that backstory, with all of the artwork and the music and the soundtrack. I mean, how amazing does that sound? You know, to be able to go into this virtual space and be stood amongst all these weird and wonderful creations and be able to interact with their design briefs. Because the design briefs were recorded, you see, so the students will actually be able to go into this space and look, and almost like they're there, and click buttons and have a look at what's being read out. Yeah, a big task. It is a big task, and we're hoping that you know, we're really hopeful that it can be pulled off, because the students are so geared up and ready for it. So yeah, it's exciting. So if that's a snapshot window of what to expect, then I'd say that.
Great. Thanks very much, Mark, for that.
No problem. No problem at all. I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate talking about this work and design, and just in general. If anybody please, 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 if anybody at any time, if you have any questions or anything you want to be able to ask, please get in touch. And I'm always happy to talk about design and ideas. And more importantly, and I'll take this back with project-based learning. In my last school, we worked a lot with parents where I know the times it's a different time now, but we worked a lot with parents to create real world opportunities for students. So, and that's the best way to learn. Students, when they're in it, they're invested in it, right? So if any of you would like an opportunity to be able to sit and talk and come up with ideas for pushing things forward, I welcome it wholeheartedly.
Great. Thanks very much for your presentation, Mr. Ellison, and to our parents who have joined us this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. We do hope that you have a safe weekend. Look out for the recording and the presentation, because there are a couple of videos that didn't play this afternoon and they're worth a watch. So with that, we will end our PAL, Parents as Learners workshop this afternoon. And before you go, a plug for our next workshop, which is on literacy in our society, and Joanne Dickinson will be running that workshop. I believe the date is the 5th of March. Is that right, Joanne?
15th, if I'm not wrong.
Sorry, 15th?
Yeah, it might not be as creative and flashy though as that. I'm really concerned now. But,
yeah, no, it definitely is the 5th. It's the 5th of March. So Friday, the 5th of March, and Joanne will be looking at the literacy in our society. So that will certainly be an interesting workshop for parents and also faculty. Thanks very much, everyone. Stay safe, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank you,
Take
Mark.
care.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
A pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.